In November of 1990, Aronimink Golf Club walked away from a PGA Championship it had already been awarded. The men's major didn't come back for 33 years. The golf course superintendent bringing it back is named John Gosselin. He's been at this for 20, the same green Scottie Scheffler will read this week. The board met on a Wednesday night, the 7th of November. They voted to be released from the contract Aronimink had signed with the PGA of America in October of 1988, the contract that named Aronimink as host of the 1993 PGA Championship. By that Thursday morning, the wire stories were moving. United Press International filed the dispatch the next day from Newtown Square, Pennsylvania. Aronimink had become the first scheduled host of a major championship to back out because it couldn't meet a new minority membership requirement. The requirement was 3 months old. In June of that year, the PGA Championship had been played at Shoal Creek in Birmingham, Alabama. Shoal Creek's founder asked why his club had no black members, told the Birmingham Post-Herald the club didn't discriminate in every other area except the blacks. The quote ran in the paper. Sponsors pulled. The PGA of America moved fast. Pat Reilly, the 26th president of the association, elected that same year, made it the policy of the championship. Clubs hosting PGA of America events would have minority members or they wouldn't host. Aronimink had a 7-year waiting list, about 100 names. Roughly 30 of those names had already paid initiation fees of $15,000. The board's position, as the club later put it to the Inquirer, was simple. They wouldn't move anyone to the front of that line. Not for the PGA, not for anyone. So Aronimink let the major go. The men's major didn't come back. Not in 1993, when Inverness and Toledo took the date. Not in the 1990s at all. By 2003, Aronimink was hosting the Senior PGA, then the AT&T National in 2010 and 2011. 2018 brought a BMW Championship. Sei Young Kim won a KPMG Women's PGA there in 2020. Aronimink hosted golf. It hosted majors of a kind. It just didn't host the men's championship it had walked away from. Not for 33 years. The course it walked away with wasn't the course it has now. Sunday's video covered the rebuild. The 4 architects who chipped at Donald Ross's 1928 design from the 60s through the 80s, the Prichard restoration drawings, Gil Hanse, who also restored Winged Foot and the Los Angeles Country Club, and Jim Wagner taking the bunkers back to what J. Victor Dallin's aerial photographs from 1929 showed they had been. Tuesday's video covered the engineering Aronimink doesn't have. No sub-air under the greens, push-up construction from 1928 still doing the work nearly a century later. Those videos are the course. This one tells what happened in between. Kenneth Hill became Aronimink's first black member in 1998, 8 years after the withdrawal. The Inquirer covered the moment. He was a local amateur. He didn't make headlines on the day he joined. The headlines came later when the AT&T National brought professional golf back to Newtown Square in 2010, and Hill watched from inside the ropes at a club that 20 years earlier had let a major championship go rather than reorder a waiting list. By the time the KPMG Women's PGA arrived in 2020, Aronimink was running a different institution than the one that had voted in 1990. But none of that brought back the men's championship. What brought it back was a 33-year arc, a 1995 master plan adopted by the membership, a consulting architect hired, then a renovation architect, then the restoration completed before the 2017 and 2018 window. Aronimink hosted the Senior PGA in 2003 to prove the property could handle it. The AT&T National rolled through in 2010 and 2011, putting professionals on television. 2018 brought the BMW and more than 3 inches of rain across a weekend, and the course still produced a Monday playoff. KPMG in 2020 closed the loop on the women's major. Then finally, the call from the PGA of America. In 2026, the men's championship was coming back. It came back to a course Donald Ross, who also designed Pinehurst No. 2, drew in 1926. It came back to a green complex he built in 1928. The creeping bent grass watching the 2026 championship isn't the grass that grew at Aronimink in 1962, when Gary Player won the PGA on these greens. What's growing there now is the product of decades of cultivar work that the Ross-era superintendent couldn't have imagined. The cultivar story is its own thread, in its own video. Treat the grass on television this week as evidence. The man running the grass for this one is John Gosselin, Aronimink calls him its director of agronomy. The Inquirer and Golfdom and the PGA's own media call him the superintendent. He spent 20 years at Aronimink. He spent 36 total in the trade. This is his 18th professional event. 13 of those 18 were McDonald's LPGA Championships, back when McDonald's was the title sponsor of the women's major. The man has prepared a championship golf course before. He hasn't prepared this one for this one. The GCSAA, the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America, calls what Gosselin does at a PGA Championship professional event preparation. Watch what the words leave out. The work doesn't start on the Monday of championship week. It doesn't start on the Monday of November before, when Aronimink closed to members on the 3rd of November in 2025 and didn't reopen. It started, in a real sense, somewhere between 1995 and 2017, when somebody at the club committed to a restoration that would eventually make the men's championship come back. Member play stopped on the 3rd of November and didn't return. Most clubs close to members for a major, Aronimink closed for the year. Members were given access to 12 or 13 other clubs in the Philadelphia area. The members didn't play their own course. They got it back on the Tuesday after Championship Sunday, the first round of member golf of the entire year. The course they got back was a course Gosselin had been preparing for 1 week of television. That preparation has a vocabulary you don't see on television. Snow mold prevention in the December and January storms. Verticutting on the bent grass greens, passing a vertical blade unit through the canopy to thin lateral growth, then top dressing with sand and rolling it in. Siringing on the hot afternoons when the soil temperature climbs above the bent grass stress threshold and the leaf blade begins to wilt. Double cut mowing in the final week, twice across the green at the same low height, followed by a single pass of the roller. Hand mowing where the walking units can't get a clean line. The agronomy crew of 30 employees plus 85 tournament volunteers from more than 65 clubs in 4 countries. A hidden army, what the off-season looks like when you're preparing a course for a major, snow mold fungicide applications in November before the first hard freeze, then a follow-up in February if the protectant has metabolized through the ice. Frost delays you can't argue with. Days the staff walks the 18 holes in boots to mark where deer have crossed in the night. The international volunteers don't fly in until April, but the work that lets the course survive long enough to receive them is happening in December and January, when nobody is watching and nobody is asking. Picking up sticks, checking the bent grass crowns, holding 1 acre of the property alive in conditions that would kill it on any other course, because no other course has a PGA Championship coming in May. The USGA standardized the Stimpmeter in 1978. Frank Thomas, the USGA's technical director, modified an aluminum prototype based on a wooden device a Massachusetts amateur named Edward Stimpson had built in 1935. The USGA took a Stimpmeter and a reference chart to every member club in the country that year. The chart came from a survey the USGA had run across 1976 and 1977. About 1,500 greens in 36 states. The average green speed in that survey was 6.5 feet. In 1978, your average American green rolled at 6.5 feet. By 2026, championship green speeds run in the 12-foot range, sometimes higher. Aronimink doesn't publish its target for championship week. The PGA doesn't either. The number nobody says out loud is the one Kerry Hay and his setup team establish every morning of the championship. It's higher than 6.5, by a lot. The Stimpmeter that arrived at Aronimink in 1978 measured a greenskeeping craft that didn't yet exist at the level it exists now. The Stimpmeter that arrives at the same greens in 2026 measures a craft Gosselin has practiced for 36 years. Same tool, different ceiling. Augusta National engineers continuously. 60 agronomy staff on the property year-round. The crew swells to over 160 during Masters Week, with volunteer superintendents flown in from around the country to walk fairways and rake bunkers. Augusta closes for the summer because Augusta can. Augusta has sub-air, blowing climate-controlled air under every green. The work never stops. 2026's Masters preparation began in May of 2025. Aronimink doesn't engineer like that. Aronimink engineers and arcs, a 33-year arc in this case, withdrawal in 1990, a master plan in 1995, Senior PGA in 2003, AT&T in 2010, BMW in 2018, KPMG in 2020, PGA Championship in 2026, then close the entire course for the prior November through the championship and let one man's 36 years of practice show. Same biology Augusta runs, bent grass under May heat, push-up greens that don't have sub-air, fairways and rough on a property that drains through engineered bunkers because the rest of the property has 1920s drainage. Identical chemistry, the same plant, the same threshold temperatures, different time signature. Augusta runs a continuous loop. Aronimink runs a 30-year arc that erupts at one tournament week. Augusta's engineers don't think in decades. Aronimink's engineers don't think in any other unit. Your course doesn't have either. There's no 60-person year-round crew and no 33-year wait between majors. Your course has a superintendent, maybe 2 assistants, maybe a seasonal crew that doubles in summer and halves in winter. Your superintendent is running a version of the same arc. He preps your course for an event nobody on television will cover, the member guest tournament, your club championship, Saturday after Labor Day, when the rough comes up and the cup gets cut where it hurts. He's running biology nobody in the gallery would recognize as biology. He's just running it on a club calendar instead of a 33-year one. You don't see it because no major arrives at the end. Nobody flies broadcast trucks to the 7th fairway of your course in May. Nobody narrows your landing area to test the world's best players. The man preparing your course has decided with the green committee what shape your 11th green will be in for the 3rd weekend of June. He has decided when to verticut and when to leave it alone. He has decided whether to syringe at noon on a Thursday because the soil temperature crossed a threshold he's been watching since 5 in the morning. He's making 33 years worth of decisions inside a calendar year on a budget that isn't Augusta's, on a course that isn't Aronimink, with maybe 4 assistants and a budget line for sand and seed. You walk past those decisions every Saturday, in carts, on phones, looking at the line of a putt that exists because someone 20 hours before you teed off set up the conditions for it. In 1990, Aronimink let go of a major rather than reorder its waiting list. In 2026, Aronimink got it back. The man preparing the grass for it hadn't yet started his apprenticeship in 1990. He hadn't yet picked up a Stimpmeter. He hadn't yet decided what he wanted to do for 36 years. Now he's doing it on television. Your superintendent didn't get the call from the PGA of America. Your superintendent got the call from the Green Committee or from a board member or from a head pro pointing at a brown patch that wasn't there last week. He answered the call. Same way Gosselin answered his. Now you know what they do before you tee off.